Bobby, what's happening, brother?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to you. We're in the similar world of agencies, and I know you've got a lot of war stories, so I want to hear a couple of them. But maybe take me back. Tell me about how you got into the agency world, because I know you have a unique take on some of the other pieces of the marketing business out there, and it led you to do what you do now.
All right, man. Yeah, I love this story. So I started my career at a .com back in the day. I was writing code,
Whoa.
directing people who were doing animation in Flash. I was doing all the drawings for it, and I was designing a startup's website.
That's pretty creative.
It was amazing. We were all like in our early 20s. We would show, I'm from Philly. I was still in Philly then. This was a place in South Jersey. We would show up to work like around 10 in flip-flops and shorts and T-shirts. And we would, have one of our computers downloading from Napster pretty steadily.
Yep.
And we would get our work done. We had autonomy and responsibility, and we were young, and it was a great environment and a great culture. And I start there not only because it's the origin of my career, but it was the model of what I sought and fiend for the next 15 years until I started my own company.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you're a young person and you know nothing about a workplace and you just pick one out of thin air, or realistically, they pick you, like the first job.
They picked me. They came and
you.
grabbed me out of school.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking more so I applied to 20 jobs and one of them responds, and I'm like, great, I got a response.
That was later.
Yeah. But you have no idea how good or how bad you actually have it. And we have some people that joined on with our company they're like 22, and I'm thinking to myself, like, they're in an awesome position. Because when I was 22, I went and worked at Best Buy for like 4 years, and I was refereeing soccer. I was living with my mom and dad. I was like trying to start this company, and we were just kind of grinding away at it, and had no idea what a workplace could actually look like. I've never worked at a real job my whole life. So.
Oh, really?
No, yeah. So I mean, I guess if you count Best Buy a real job, or like refereeing soccer a real job, which I don't count that as a real job. No, I never worked a big kid job. I started this company basically a year after graduation while I was kind of doing those other things. And yeah, this September will be 10 years at it. So we've had to learn on the fly. We had no template for what we wanted. We just wanted to stay in business mostly.
Wow. I mean, dude, hats off to you, man. I know a few people like you. You're a rare breed. I have all the employee experience, and it all sucked, but it was all learning opportunities. So it definitely built my unique perspective, which after all these years makes my thinking and point of view and ideas very valuable to my clients. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't suffer as an employee and build my, kind of work my way up through it, both in-house and agencies. Like I just did it all. And then after 15 years, I was like, what do I do now? And it was like a crossroads of, in my mind, it was distilled down to, do I want to bust my ass for someone else's dreams or my own? And that's an easy choice once you actually think about it. And you figured that out early, man. So good for you.
Yeah. So what happens after that highly creative animation job? How long does that last? How does that end? What happens next? So
I've been at this for 25 years now, which I'm realizing last week that I'm like, damn, I've been doing it for 25 years. So it's been a minute. I was still in school. So I had two undergrad degrees. I finished one school and jumped into another. And I went from animation. I went from being a science major to leaving that school and 3 years of science, which I still love, but it's not my thing. Then I went to art school, finished that with a degree in animation, and then went back to that same school. They had a multimedia and digital art program. So I finished that degree. My credits just carried over. I just had 2 undergrads. And that's where I learned like some coding, some IT. You know, the internet in 1999 was like, it wasn't in everybody's house.
Yeah.
You didn't have, you know, you had a T1 internet connection at an office. Like at home, you dial up for a while. And so like we had, you know, that .com bubble back then was really just, people were just overzealous. They knew the potential, but like, you know, we were building that company was, we were building a licensable, repeatable, scalable registration and team management for soccer, like soccer in like, you know, communities. Like, you know, you sign up your team on it, you register, you know, you collect money through it. So like it was pretty, it was a great concept.
That was like 20 years early.
Yeah, now it's like, duh, you can just do that like instantly.
Well, there are plenty of apps. I mean, I'm in a volleyball league, and I don't know what the app they use. It's like Team Sign Up or something like that.
Yeah,
Easy Sign Up.
This was called We Play It.
Yeah.
So it's doesn't exist, and so I was they came and got me out of school when I was finishing up my second degree, which was great. They were paying me like 40-some thousand. And, you know, I'm in my early 20s. It's 99. Like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And, like, so I was one of the last employees there. I made it till December. I started working there the previous year. I made it till December, and then they laid me off. They laid everybody off. They laid everybody off already, and I hung on because I was back in school, and I worked there part-time, but I like was mocking up websites for communities they're trying to sell to. So, you know, doing some HTML coding and things like that. I never got into like ActionScript or Flash. Good thing, because that was the worst. So after that, was it 99? After that, I was like, I'm getting a job, no problem. And I didn't. It was a .com bubble burst.
You've been spoiled.
And even though I had experience, even though I had 2 degrees, even though I was pretty good, I couldn't get a job. And then I was, I guess it was maybe I had some odds and end jobs for about a year. And then I started caddying, carrying golf bags, because I just had to do whatever I had to do. And then, you know, my mom was like, maybe you should join the FBI, because the FBI was hiring. But I had a couple secret tattoos, and back then you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But then then 9/11 happened as the economy was starting to come back around, and I was feeling optimistic. But after 9/11 happened, I actually got a job. And I was working in marketing for a large beer wholesaler. So I was doing marketing, on-premise marketing for them, doing design. I ended up working there. It was my longest job in my, you know, kind of industry career. For 4.5 years, I worked there. You know, but I was making less money than I made at the startup. I had way more responsibility. I worked way more hours, but I learned a lot. It was a great opportunity to learn, but like, it definitely didn't make much money. But I had more, like, it just segued into it. Like, I was just another employee, and like within short order, just like at the .com, I became like a manager. And I just kind of always floated to the top, whether there was space or not. Just kind of like, just naturally just want to, I have ideas and I want to take action on them. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I want to make things better. I want to improve. I wanted to get maximize impact, minimize frustration, and that's kind of been like my MO from the get-go.
Interesting. So what did you learn in your time as an employee? Because obviously it wasn't all great, because if it was, you'd have stuck around and continued doing it.
I learned. So I worked there for 4.5 years, and then I left, and I worked at a job for a week, and then they fired me because they wanted a web developer, and I'm not that, even though I know code. But the computer they gave me didn't even work, and then at the end of the week, they're like, basically, we screwed up. You're let go. And I was a little bit bitter, but that sort of set me on the track to leave Philly and move to Baltimore, which was a game changer. But what did I learn? Mostly I learned what I would not do once I got into a leadership role. The micromanaging, the kind of deceit, the kind of like you need to work long, hard hours to prove your worth. You get rewarded by working this long, hard hours with more work. And I learned that in a lot of companies, they don't give a damn about you. You're just there to do stuff to make them money. And I mean, in 4.5 years, I took every angle. I made them so much money. I revolutionized what we were doing and made that company so much money. But for some reason, the owner looked at me as like as a necessary evil, not an asset. Not even though you could draw the line from my impact to people's profit, their customer's profit, and the company's profit. Like it was there, but they wouldn't give it to me, and they wouldn't give me any money. And I tried every angle to make more money, and they would just say, "There's no money to give you." And it's like, we don't want to pay you more. Is basically what they're saying. So,
well, in some way, that's a business showing their hand, right?
Right. And eventually, I said, screw it. Right.
Unfortunately, if that's the way that you have to learn, this is how this business operates, then you learn it that way. One of the best things I ever heard about this was if you're looking to get a raise, go to your boss, whatever, January 1st, and say, hey, I'm looking at doing these 5 agenda items over the next 6 months, and I want to keep you updated on these 5 agenda items. Is it okay if I put these as my goals and my agenda items that I'm going to be working on? And of course, your manager is going to go, yeah, that's great. I'm excited that you're excited about agenda items. And then you make a big show out of it. Every month you present, here's where I've done on agenda item 1 and agenda item 2, agenda item 3, right? And then you get to the end of your 6 months, and then you have your big presentation, and you bring everything forward, and you show them all the results that you. Obviously, you have to actually deliver some results. This isn't going to work if you're not like an employee who's going to deliver. But it sounded like you were an employee who's going to deliver.
Yeah.
And then they go, wow, Bobby, you're doing so great. I'm so excited you did these 6 agenda items. You're fantastic. Great 6 months. And you go, great. I'm excited that you're happy about it. I'd like to talk about my compensation increasing, because clearly I'm a high performer and I'm trying my best to deliver value to the company. And then one of 2 things is sort of going to happen. One, they're going to go, yeah, that probably makes sense. We probably need to bump you up because we don't have very many other employees who are doing this thing. Or they're going to say, well, we really like that you did these things, Bobby, but we have a system for our compensation, pay raises and everything. And maybe we'll wait till the end of the year. Or we just really can't do anything, or we're excited you're trying hard, but we don't really have anything for you. And if they do that, they've sort of shown you the cards that they have on the table. And it's going to be one that, hey, you could be a high performer at this business, and they could just not reward you for that. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of incentive to be a high performer at a business like that. And maybe you go, all right, this is not a business that's going to reward me. I can't stick around and continue to give them everything I've got if they're not going to give me what they got.
Yeah, that was exactly it. I mean, they're paying me like $35,000, and I had built an entire team. I built all these systems and processes. I streamlined everything. I was managing like a 6-figure budget. I was managing all these vendors. And every time like I pointed to all this impact, they would say, let me see what we can do. And they would come back with something that was just basically insulting. And, I was just kind of naive and, believed things that were wrong about the world, that it was a meritocracy. And I actually, I left when the owner of the company's 16-year-old son, they're telling me that there's no money, and the owner of the company's 16-year-old son shows up, who was my intern, and I liked him. But he's like, he turned 16, he got a car, he got a $40,000 car, and they're paying me $35,000. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, I started an internship program that fed into employees. I made all their sales and marketing people a lot of money, and they couldn't even pay me the same as the guy who stocked the shelves, with the point of sale and merchandising stuff. So like it was just like, yeah. But so I had to come to that realization, but that didn't make me jaded. That didn't change me for who I am. But it just made me aware of that. That people operate that way and they'll lie to you. And everyone that was lying to me was making a lot of money. And they just didn't want to make any less so I could make. I had 3 jobs while I was working there. I bartended. Like, it just sucked. But
what advice would you have for somebody to kind of spot that management is not going to be there for you? Because that's kind of an ethereal thing. It's like, how do I even find that out in my interview? And how do I know that on the job listing or the company culture? How do I even understand if they're going to be there for me? It's a difficult thing to know.
It's hard to say now, man, because I've had my own company for almost 10 years. And before that, I was an executive. I would say, even after that, like I would go in with like very prepared, deliberate questions to ask about the culture, to ask about growth opportunities. And these guys straight up lie to you. They would just lie. Oh, everyone loves it here. Yeah, I can see that. Everyone's been working here for 10, 15 years. And I get the job there. It turns out everyone's been working there so long because it's Stockholm Syndrome. They don't have the guts to roll out. So I would quit jobs, like in months. And be like, screw this, I'm out. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, listen, I don't got time for this. I got to look out for myself. And when I moved to Baltimore, I had a job that was absolutely the worst job I've ever had. But it brought me to Baltimore, so that was a good thing. And after 2 years, they fired me, and I did donuts in the parking lot as I drove out, just so relieved. And I freelanced for a while, but I was in grad school, and I finished up grad school. And when I was in grad school, I kind of figured it all out in terms of like how to produce like top tier work. And previously I didn't know how, but I knew how. I knew the tactical side. I knew software. I knew how to manage people. I knew how to work with clients. I knew all that stuff, but I couldn't do the concept pre-design. And in grad school, I figured that out. And that gave me all the leverage in the world because I had all this other stuff I was really good at, but then I could also produce like world-class type work. And that gave me an incredible advantage. And I would apply for a job and they would hire me on the spot. And I would ask them like, what's it like working here? And if they want you, they'll tell you what they think they want you to hear. So it's really hard to validate that. And like despite all this, this is a really interesting question, Alexander. I don't know how to answer it for people because I'll never work for somebody again.
Well, you obviously want to build a business where people want to work for you, right? So that's kind of the opposite.
Or with me, yeah. Like I say with me, yeah.
Right. Well, we have, I don't know, 31 people in the office every day, and we're very thoughtful trying to make them enjoy working here. It's difficult.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you can't make everybody happy, and
No.
not every work product that you create is going to be some life-changing, life-altering, fulfillment delivering type of thing. And we're in the logistics business. So there's people who got to pack orders, right?
Right.
So we do our best with that, but maybe what do you do to build a culture where people feel like this is awesome, kind of that come in at 10 a.m. with flip-flops thing that you talked about.
I could talk about that. So it's really treat them like an adult. It's as simple as that. So like you're hiring them, trust them, empower them. If you can't trust your employees, then look in the mirror because you're not trustworthy yourself. So that's a reflection on you, right? So like just think about like people who lie and steal. They think everyone does it because they do it. And that's not true, right? So like lead by example, trust your people, but really be clear what their role is and how that contributes to the overall success of the company and the potential trajectory towards where they want to be. So when I interview people to work with me, even in previous roles, I would ask them, like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, what like outside of this job, like, what else do you like to do? I say something like simple as like, what's your story? Where are you from? What did you do growing up? Like, what are you into? And like, because I really want to get to know them. You think about, right, you got 31 people in your office. I think like the last agency I worked at, I think it was around 40 people before I left. And that was just too many. I'm sure I can sympathize with you, man. It's just too many people for me. Lots of personalities, lots of potential drama, lots of problems, lots of stuff, but also a lot of people, right? But I want to know what else they want to do. And I tell them, like, I want to exploit all of your talents in a good way. And I tell my people, and I told them last week, because we're changing things up here, like, does this fit into your plan? Like, what's the life you want? And can this company provide that for you? Like, you owe me nothing. And that's the opposite of what most people think. They think that as an employee, we owe them everything, which is total bullshit. Like, the success of my company is not because of me. It's because of my people and what they're doing and how they're contributing. So like, they get no blame, only credit. I get all the blame. If things are screwed up, that's all me. What did I do wrong? What can I do better? What can I improve? And I mentioned that job that brought me to Baltimore was awful. And after some years thinking about it and being able to think about it, because it was truly like so toxic, I realized that it wasn't necessarily them. It's that I was the wrong person in the wrong seat. And that's like, okay, now that I realize that, how can I help my clients make sure that their culture is clear so that they're hiring the right people and putting them in the right seat? Because when you're the wrong person in the wrong seat, like, that sucks for everybody. And, we're told we got to stay in a job because of our resume and all that's nonsense too. It's like, wrong person, wrong seat. Is this helping or hurting the company? Is this helping or hurting the team and morale? And all those things are like, well, this shit is hurting it big time. So it just needs to be rectified and remedied and avoid it ever again. And it's easy to do that when you know what your culture is. You know what the non-negotiable aspects of your business are. You know what the must-haves in every situation are. And like, I'm clear with my people. Like, no one will disrespect you. No one will be sexist or mean or talk down. Like, we have to be appreciated. We have to be respected. And you're going to get autonomy, and you got to own your work. Like, that's pretty easy, but that's not for everybody. Mm-hmm. Now, like, to work here, you got to have that entrepreneurial spirit, but you also need to be self-motivated, and you got to really own your shit. That doesn't mean you're on an island. It means you ask for help before, like, it gets too far down the line. Or you just reach out and communicate with your team and be like, yo, support me on this. Got your back, man. And, like, if not, you know, it's always like, I don't care if you screw up unless you're screwing up because you're rushing or you're lazy. And I'll crush you for that. And if you lie, you're fired. But like, the other thing is like, listen, like, nothing is a rush in marketing, despite what anybody thinks. Like, you know, there's urgency, but there's nothing that needs to be rushed. And so, like, the people doing the writing and the strategy and the designing and the building, like, just manage expectations all the way around, and you really won't have any problems. And if the client has a problem with it, well, then I either didn't manage them properly or they're the wrong fit because they're just an asshole and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and I think kind of what you're discussing is those company cultures that go the wrong direction. Unfortunately, I don't even think that most of the time that's by any means intentional. There's no mean villain at the top. It's just this company gets older, it gets bigger, it gets ossified into its ways. Yeah, well, we just work, you know, we get the job done, and then before you know it, 8 hours turns into 9 hours, and then
nobody knows why they're doing it a certain way, right? Because like, there was a reason why this process or procedure was put into place. Yeah, and then it becomes dogma, and you're just unquestionable. And you're like, why are we doing it this way? This way sucks.
Yep.
And they're like, it's because we always did it that way. And like, that's the kind of dangerous stuff that, like, the people who say those things are the wrong employees in any organization.
Well, how's the quote go? No one ever got fired for hiring McKinsey. It's like the famous consulting firm. Whether or not you're actually doing the right thing, you feign like you're doing the right thing instead of getting out on a limb and kind of like you probably were going, hey, like, this system doesn't work, so let's go out and let's recreate it. Let's use this app. Let's pull this thing in. We need these people. These people don't actually work that well. Let's bring these people in. You're like really taking the boat and rocking it. And they were like, we don't need you to rock the boat. Okay.
Dangerous, man. Yeah.
Dude, we just need you. We just need you to keep rowing. That is all we need you to do is row harder. And you're like, no, like, we're going the wrong direction.
Yeah, like, I'm going to build a sail.
Yeah. No. We're not doing sales. And I think that's an unfortunate reality. And sometimes I don't want to, criticize all big businesses because there are big businesses who kind of can live those values out. I've done some business with Costco, and they seem like they really have like a top-down value system that they all sort of understand. But as you get farther and farther away from the leadership, it becomes difficult. And then something happens and you go, this isn't really living out the values of the company, whether or not, that's instituted on a corporate-wide level. I'm just going to read something that you wrote kind of about maybe what led you to start your agency. You said, pointlessly tracking hours down to the minute, supporting union-busting corporations, chronically low wages, micromanaging bosses, deceptive practices, lying, greed, gimmicks, hacks, destruction of the earth, exploiting people, animals, relentlessly craving power, feigning unlimited growth, and senselessly hoarding money and resources are celebrated, probably because those evil people also own much of the media. So you clearly, you didn't hold any punches back on that kind of phrase there. And I think that's what led you to start your company. and say, hey, we're going to do this thing totally different. So let's talk to me about your agency that you have started and what life actually looks like there.
You gotta have principles, man. Like, I'm in Baltimore, so even Omar, said famously, a man's got to have a code, right? So like you got to have a code. And when I started my company after working at another agency, helping grow it, and it was a great opportunity, and then eventually it wasn't. What I learned was that marketing is perceived to be a value driver for the client, whether you're in-house, a consultant, or an agency, right? You're supposed to drive results. But that's not correct. Marketing people and marketing agencies are there to make money for themselves.
Is this why you think so many people have had negative experiences with marketing agencies? Because I hear that a lot.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Yours truly has been in marketing for 25 years, and I've been burned by marketers. Even me, who's been a leader in marketing for almost 15 years. Even I have gotten burned. And so
badge of honor, man. We've all done it.
We've all. So I think 100% of clients and business leaders, entrepreneurs, founders, leaders, they've all been burned by marketing, unfortunately. So let's just agree that at least a heavy percentage of folks think either marketing is BS or it's way more. It's not worth it, right? It's a scam. You're getting gamed, and I disagree wholeheartedly. And I got so frustrated with the way marketing works, because marketing is like this, right? You have a need, and then you're sold on some tools or tactics or a philosophy. And then, or that you believe self-identify based on your symptoms or your environment, or you've been influenced or you read something. And then you go and seek somebody who you believe is going to provide the solution to your perceived problem. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. Like, we wanted to kind of research and try to understand our predicament. And then, my mind is just constantly trying to figure out the problem and then the solution, whether I like it or not. So it's an active mind for me, but I get why like internal teams or leaders or committees like seek certain vendors for certain things that they believe is going to be the trigger for their next phase of growth. But what you end up doing is seeking that vendor who's going to provide specific tools and tactics that may or may not work. But just like, a casino, the house is always going to win. They're going to make money whether you make money or not.
Yep.
And the way marketing works is that it's a long game, and it gives them opportunity, the marketing folks, it gives them opportunity to point at things to prove their worth. So say you latch on to a marketing firm, you sign a year agreement for $20K a month plus X spend, because you're going to do digital, you're going to do inbound, you're going to do ads, you're going to do social. That agency is going to put people on that project who may or may not be qualified to do those things. A lot of times what happens is you'll get guys like me who you're like, wow, this dude knows his shit. He's cool. Yeah, let's go with them. Then you never see me again. That's the bait and switch. right? And then somebody who's there making, 35, 40K a year, fresh out of school, who doesn't really know shit about marketing, is going to do a lot of activities. And then when the client gets their report at the end of the month from the account manager or project manager or both, they're going to say, point to all these activities and hours spent and stuff done. And metrics that honestly don't matter. What they're not going to talk about are the leading and lagging indicators moving you towards your predetermined, pre-agreed upon goals and objectives. What they're not going to do, well, they're going to go through the motions and go through a discovery and strategy exercise that probably has a cute name, but they're not going to learn anything about you or your customers. They're not going to put a strategy in place to position or categorize your company a different way to really just eliminate the competition. They're not going to really empathize with your target audience in a way that you actually know what their problem is, so that you cannot just talk about like, we do this stuff and we do that stuff and we're better than them because they suck. No, like that's not marketing. That's wasting time. What you want to say is, here's your problem. Here's your problem. Here's your problem. Here's your problem. And then your customer is going to say, oh shit, you're talking about my problem. You get me. That's how you get work, right? So like what is missing from the equation is the strategy. But here's the problem with marketing strategy or brand strategy, right? Like it only considers a portion of that front of house growth activity. So they might not even have designers or creative strategists on the team. They might just have marketers, or they may. But what they're not doing is talking about like, okay, what's the right lead for us? And how do we collaborate with that whole front of house, with brand, with marketing, with business dev and sales? And if you're selling products, like it's a little bit different, but essentially like that conversion, however, whether it's a click or signing, like that conversion, still that conversion. Let's just call that sales. And business dev is basically post connection, post marketing qualified lead. Like once they're a marketing qualified lead, then let's just call that business dev and sales post that. Just to use the same nomenclature, because you guys do e-com. I know e-com, but mostly on B2B now. So like, and B2B does include online sales, but we're selling to people. So what they're not talking about is what happens, like, is that lead a good lead? And then what happens after you capture that lead? And then it gets into more tactics and tools, software and this and that. And it's like, does that really work? Right? And how are we validating our pipeline's health and the velocity of our pipeline? And it's like, wait, well, marketing people don't talk about that. Well, they should, because marketing needs to be the setup guy for sales. So I've worked with the smallest company you can imagine to like multi-billion-dollar companies that everyone knows by name. And your shelves are filled with their stuff. And what is so common is that marketing and sales don't even talk, let alone collaborate, let alone share goals and objectives and philosophies. So what happens is once you start doing your tactics, you're spending money with the agency or your team or your person. And they're going to point to all these activities and meaningless metrics and say, oh, you wanted leads. You're trying to grow, so I'll get you leads, right? Like that's such a small part of growth. I'm going to get you leads. And then what happens when leads come in? Well, are they good or bad? No one really knows, because the marketing person is just getting you leads, and that's where their accountability stops. And that's completely insane to me. Right? So like, well, let's hand that lead off to the next team. We call that biz dev sales, right? It's like, okay, well, we got these marketing qualified leads and we're going to hand them the sales, and then poof, magically now they're a sales qualified lead. And then sales is saying, you're not getting us good leads. And they're pointing the finger. And marketing's going, you guys suck. You can't close these deals. So they're pointing the finger. It's like, well, when everyone's pointing the finger, you know what's truly happening is that your company is dysfunctional and everyone's job is really just covering their own ass. So there's got to be like a check and balance there, right? So it's really simple, right? One, you use pipeline velocity as a tool.
Pipeline velocity. That's what I was going to ask you about.
Yeah, pipeline velocity.
Like the single most important metric you track.
I believe so, because it is so pipeline velocity is historically used to track business dev and sales. But I will go a step further. It's a method to hold the entire team accountable, because if your pipeline is filled with leads and no one's closing them, you got to figure out why.
And how would you calculate your pipeline velocity? What's the formula that goes into that?
It's
shit. That's not. I'll say it right now. That's not a metric that I track at my company. It's not even, I'll be honest, not even one that I've heard of previous to this. So.
Oh yeah. So I have it. Let me grab it here. Where is that?
A metric used to go-to-market teams to measure the speed at which opportunities move through the stages of a sales pipeline. So really, you're measuring the speed at which lead comes in, and then what, like days to close or something along those lines?
Yeah, I actually have. I'm opening up. Okay, so
because I have to think that there's also some sort of component about how many come in. Because if I get one lead and I can handle it in 60 seconds, I don't really know if that's like a win necessarily. It's just I don't have anything going on.
Okay, so how to measure pipeline velocity? It's the number of marketing qualified leads, MQLs, that become sales qualified leads, SQLs, in your pipeline.
Okay.
So like, but there's something missing there, right? Like, so it's the average time MQL to SQL to closing, right? So the time and cost to attract and convert new customers, and your sales team's overall win percentage, and your sales team's average deal size. So it's everything to do with that second half of marketing. And but it's also a metric to evaluate marketing. And here's how you do it, right? So you say like, okay, we ran these campaigns, we spent this amount of money, we got this many clients, this many leads rather. It's like, okay, so it costs, we spent X per lead. And then it's like, okay, so like say we ran a campaign, we got 1,000 leads, and we're like, okay, we spent $10,000 to get 1,000 leads. It's $10 a lead. Okay, cool. So that's one metric. That's one number of this formula. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, so what typically happens is that sale or marketing will just throw those leads over the fence and say, all right, sales, wrap it up.
Go get them,
right? And that's flawed. And what they need to do, and here's why it's flawed, right? Because you say like, okay, we got you these leads. That's our job as marketing. Leads. What sounds weird about that?
Not sales.
Well,
don't make any money off a lead.
Right. Just leads or good leads?
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Ideal client leads.
You got to be careful. Back in my construction days, you can't just pay a kid to knock on doors. Because they'll just knock on. They'll go to an apartment where they're like, I can knock 100 doors today or whatever. Right. Sometimes it works. But yeah, you want to be actually like going to the right neighborhoods, going to the right homes, hitting the right homes. also, sometimes it caused even more work because they'd knock on a door of someone who had no business needing, like they got a new roof like 2 years ago. And then we'll go like set the appointment. It's like, this is like a waste of an hour driving out here to even look at this place. So
yeah, could you imagine you spending your whole day telling people no because your leads suck, or you're showing up first on Google for shit that you don't do, or clients you don't want to work with?
Right.
Like that happens constantly. And the clients are part of the problem because they want that vanity metric. We want to be first on Google.
Yeah.
When you work with exclusive customers, you don't want people searching for you anyway.
my favorite is so we run the ads for our business partners on Amazon. So I just go like, I want to go after my competitors with ads, and I'm like, oh geez, like no, you do not. They're like, no, nope. I do. Like we're better than them. I was like, look,
no, you're not.
If your competitor,
no one cares.
If your competitor is Liquid IV, and I make you pop up when someone searches Liquid IV, first and foremost, you're not going to sell anything. Like you might get like 20 cents on every dollar that you sold. And like, yeah, maybe every once in a while you'll convert a customer, but it's like, do you really want to like spend, $100 for every $20 in sales that you make? And then like your margin's like 8% of the $20. So it's like, okay, I made $1.60 and I spent 100. It's like, you're being crazy. Like, trust me, you do not want to go after your competitors. Like, I'll
tell you why.
Go after warm audience. Don't go after freezing cold audience.
I'll tell you why. So let me finish the pipeline velocity equation. So what we want to do is be on the same team, right? When you're on the same team working on a common goal, like amazing shit happens. When you're not, like that causes all sorts of problems for your company. So, all right, we want leads, we want sales. So the way we hold that accountable is that we get that marketing qualified lead, and then we add a step. Sales accepted leads. So before you just throw all those leads over and say, sales, go get them, you say, sales, assess. Accept the ones you want. There is the accountability step. Because then you say, all right, sales, all right, marketing, you got 1,000 leads. Sales accepted 250. Marketing needs strategy.
So they're hitting at a 25% rate, essentially.
Yeah. So then you could say, all right, sales, you got 250 leads. You close 200 of them, rock stars. You close 2 of them, sales needs help.
It also incentivizes the sales team, hopefully not in the wrong direction, to pick leads that are good because they want to get a high
they want to
close rate. They don't want to
all I need. That's all you, as the leader of your company, you want to close leads,
right? The
right leads, right? So if sales is like finicky, within reason, like you don't just close the home runs, like close good ones, and sometimes you got to work at them, right? So, all right, so let's talk about that, going after Liquid IV, right? It's bad marketing for one reason, to go after the leader of a category. So Liquid IV probably is one of the category kings of electrolyte beverages.
But Bobby, they have $100 million in market share. I just need to pull 1 or 2% of that.
So okay, so let's break this down for your listeners. When you are the category king, right? That doesn't mean you have the better brand. That doesn't mean you have the better marketing. That means you own the category. And when you own the category, guess what? You own 75% of the wallets. So it's actually 76, but I like the easy number. So let's go 76, keep it real. All right. So what's left? 24%. And what's going to happen? All those competitors, competition, the clones, right? They're all going to be fighting over 24%.
Mm-hmm.
They'll never get a majority of that. There's sometimes that 2 could own a category. There could be like a big one and then a runner-up, and then the rest. right? So like if your customers are saying like, oh, we want to go after liquid IV, tell them, it's a fool's errand. Put it back at them, say like, how can you change your product to be in a different category?
100%. Yeah.
Right. So instead of it being liquid IV for like your hangover or you're running a lot, you need electrolytes. Like, create something slightly different. Maybe it's the way it's packaged. Maybe it's the way it's delivered. Maybe it's instead of being, think of a good example. Instead of it being a BlackBerry, it's an iPhone. Instead of it being a, water in a plastic bottle, it's canned water. So you changed it. The category's got to exist, right? Because there's got to be a market. But they're not better. They're just a little different.
Yeah, I call that 2 o'clock. You don't want to go from midnight to 6 because that's totally different, right? Like,
okay.
If instead of you drinking a hydration drink, I'm like, yeah, you need to do this enema thing. You're like, this is too different for me. Like,
right? Yeah.
This is too different. Like, now you're having to like teach everyone. No. You don't understand. This is better for you. It's more hydrated. You're only gonna have to do it once a week. It's like there's too much education that needs to be done. Now, every once in a while, that will work and it will break through. And there'll be a product that everyone has to first get educated on. Like, oh no, you don't need to use that type of shampoo any longer. This is totally like dry shampoo. There's maybe an example. It's like, you don't need to wash your hair. Yeah. You can use dry shampoo. Like, 30 years ago, people would be like, that's weird. Like, I have to wash my hair with like a liquid soap. But now it's like, oh, dry shampoo. But that's not nearly as big, right? So you don't want to go to midnight. You just want to go to like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like, instead of hydrating like with a powder, maybe it's like a liquid packet. It's like, oh, this is different,
Yeah, or it's like a fizzy thing, like a
effervescent. Yep,
effervescent, that's right?
Exactly. It's funny. We actually like looked at making an effervescent energy product for a while. We never pulled it together. There's brands out there that do it now. We just spent so much time on Amazon looking around at categories. We're like, this is interesting. Like, there's nobody really doing this thing. Which is part of the fun of my business, but for sure. It's tough. It's tough to break through, and I'm totally with you. I would much rather have a product that's like unique-ish, and I can break into a slightly different, more neutral category than
like
just
an ownable category.
Well, like and here's another thing that people don't fully understand or conceptualize. Let's say you want to go after, again, liquid IV, and you maybe have like a idea that you're going to be profitable. Liquid IV might be losing $5 million a year on Amazon. Like, that might be their strategy. So they may just go after, and they actually do. I brought them up, and not to talk a ton about them, but because we do business with a hydration company, and Liquid IV will run a keyword on anything that is even close, like in things that are not close. Sometimes you'll be searching for like pre-workout, Liquid IV pops up. Protein powder, Liquid IV pops up. And these are super expensive keywords that you need to like have the right product, the right category, 5,000 reviews, low price to like even make a sale on the search term pre-workout. That's like a $7 click, and you'll like burn through a $250 budget in 60 minutes. And Liquid IV will pop up. And I'm like, there's no possible way that they are converting on this keyword at like even a one-to-one sale to spend. So they might just be like, yeah, our strategy is to be the number one bestseller on Amazon. We're willing to lose $5 million a year to kind of like keep our spot. And if you want to compete with them on that, it's like, great. You also have to decide, I want to lose $5 million a year on this platform.
Right. It's the cost of entry, right? You got to pony up $5 million to like try to get a piece of the 24%.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'll see this because I'll follow like where companies are getting funding. I'll see a big company get like $100 million in funding, and then their stuff start popping up on every ad on Amazon. And I'm like, okay, there it is. It's like, someone told them, you got to spend. And they don't care whether they're converting or not. They're just like, well, we got all this money. It's time for us to spend. And then, one of my least favorite ways of doing business is this idea that I'll spend. Everything will convert at a negative. Like, I'll spend $1 to make 50 cents.
Yeah.
And then some magical place out in the future, I'll have converted enough clients that I can stop doing that and I'll be profitable. And it's just never been my experience that actually works. I think what you're doing is just training like customers that you are never going to be able to retain, that like you're like building a transient base of customers that they'll go for any ad that is in their wheelhouse, and they rarely are going to stick onto your product and brand. I've just seen a lot of companies try it. I've legitimately never seen a company where it works.
So that's interesting because I've seen some variation on that in numerous types of businesses, and it's basically like going back to my origins in the beer business. Like Budweiser would try to get all the cold shelves. So you think like Budweiser creates like 5 different types of Bud Light, or I don't know, so maybe it's 100. I don't know. I don't drink it. But it's not cannibalizing their market share. It's dominating shelf space. So what they're trying to do is just be present. So that's what they're doing with running all those ads in various places, is they're trying to build up the familiarity they need to grow brand equity, brand recall, so that when people eventually feel like, they want pre-workout, they want protein, they want creatine, whatever, and then they're like, you know what? Someone said I should take electrolytes, and boom.
Which one have you heard of? Oh, I've heard of this one.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. You, I saw that you said you're all about building the brand the right way. What does that mean to you?
No gimmicks, no hacks, no shortcuts. So it really starts with like, who are you? What makes you different? What makes you unique? How do we position and categorize that? And then that informs design and writing and messaging. And that informs like marketing. Who are we marketing to? How are we marketing? What are the tactics? And that informs, the whole customer journey. So like, unfortunately, everybody's seeking instant gratification, overnight success, and that stuff, and it's just like, you just got to stop with that. That doesn't happen. No matter what you see in Inc. and Fortune magazine, like those articles are PR bullshit. And none of these CEOs of off the top of your head who are supposed to be these titans of industries did it alone. It's a lot of people and a lot of money and a lot of time to get there, despite them accepting all the attention. That's a troublesome thing in its own right. But building, there's got to be a process, right? And when I started to get into brand strategy and just marketing and growth strategy, it was because I'll tell you a story. It was when I worked for another agency. We were redesigning, rethinking and redesigning a e-com website for expensive espresso machines, fancy ass things.
I just had one from a hand press. So
yeah.
Sorry,
right, an air press,
No,
not
man,
air press.
It's literally just like a one you crank down with your hand. You like pack the espresso into like a little pod, and then you just like take your right hand, press it hard, and
these things were not that. These had the eagle on it, all those things.
The one you get like when you go to the fancy like Delta Lounge or Amex Centurion Lounge.
Yeah,
there's one in the Columbus Centurion Lounge that we really love to go to. Eventually, we're like, we need one for the office. We looked it up. It was $13,000.
Yeah,
we're like, we don't need one.
Yeah, the entry level one's like $3,000, and you're like, wait a second. I get it. Like, but
I love
like,
coffee. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I love coffee.
I do, but like,
What?
$13K
How does
for
that Damon Johns joke go? I can find somebody on the corner in the hood that'll do it for $5 for you. Like, I'll just pay them the $5 every time I want an espresso. They can make it.
right. Yeah, why, it's like owning a boat. Like, I'd rather have a friend that owns a boat. So they hired us. I worked at another agency. I was a creative director, and six-figure website, six-figure website 12, 13 years ago. And we have our process, and I'm working with a project manager who was a good buddy, and we go through information architecture and UX approved. We identified all the decision makers and participants on the project team. We go through IA, UX, good to go. We come back to show some initial design concepts, UI and stuff. And there's a new person on the call. And this is in my book, by the way. And this changed my life, this event. And we're in our conference room, and we're sharing our screen, and how you did it 12, 13 years ago. And this new person on the call is very kind of combative and like annoyed. And we're like quantifying our choices. We're showing, this is like before, like this is kind of like, I was like pushing hard. Like, we need to make shit responsive. And like, we were working on Magento and stuff, and the Magento wasn't inherently responsive at the time. And I'm like, we can't have a mobile site. But in hindsight, they wanted a mobile site and a full-size desktop site because they could charge the client for two websites. And I was like, that's not in their best interest, but now I know why they did it, after the fact. And I couldn't understand why they wouldn't buy into it. We would have been cutting edge. It would have made us a lot of money if instead of short-term thinking. But anyway, this person's pissed, and it goes really wrong. And we worked with the CEO to this point, and he was there. He was really quiet. So we get off the call, and the PM and I are looking at each other like, what the hell was that? So in comes the owner of the agency. He's freaking pissed. He starts yelling at us and stuff, and I'm like, dude, freaking chill with that. And I was like, listen, we did everything our way. We did everything right. And then all of a sudden, there's a new person on the call that was never identified before and derailed it. Well, he's so pissed because they fired us.
Oh, like right after the call.
Right after the call, the CEO called the owner of the agency, or the sales director or whatever, who was the principal, and fired us. And I'm like, I regret nothing. I don't know what happened.
Right.
But to make sure your listeners get the story, it was the owner's wife.
Oh no!
And it turns out she designed the site we were blowing up.
Oh.
And we're not, like, I'm tactful, man. Like, I'm very diplomatic, and I quantify everything. Like, there's a method to get to the solution to ensure the best outcomes for our client. Like, that's always my way. But it was an unwinnable, untenable situation. And it wasn't our fault. But I saw a flaw in my approach. And I didn't really care about the owner of the company's reaction because I think it was childish and unprofessional. But I cared about never having that happen to me again. And I said, and I rhetorically thought, how can I make it about what's best for their brand and their future customer? To take the ego, the whim, the opinion, the nonsense out of the work. And any graphic designer you ever talk to that has done it professionally will tell you a story about a client coming back and be like, I don't like it. And I had no room for that. but I didn't have a method to eliminate that as an option for them. So I started like immediately researching. What can I do? What questions can I ask? What format? How do I ask these questions? Like I did tons of experiments. I wrote out questions. I would send them a questionnaire. I did interviews. I did a hybrid. And what I realized is that the best method to extract that information, this was my goal, was to extract this information from them, provide it in like a brief or something, strategy document, get them to say yes. And my thought was I was heading them off at the pass. I was getting, be 10 steps ahead, right? Know the questions before they ask them. Answer them before they ask them. Like, that's always my thing. Like, be the most, I would say, be the smartest person in the room, which is not what that means. It's be the most prepared. So they have the utmost confidence in you because you're answering their questions before they ask them. And when they're asking other questions, you have really good answers. So they're at ease. Mm. So what I was really doing was developing strategy. And that's when I went from being a designer, thinker, to a strategist and a thinker. And I still remained a designer. So I still design here and there, but not like it's like hook people up with stuff. So I didn't have what I learned is I didn't have to use their words against them. Mm. What happened was we were all clear on the goal. We were all clear on what needed to happen next. We were all unified on that shared that same team on a shared goal. And never did I have to say, hey, you said your customer base is, 18 to 30-year-old women. And your brand stands for this. And this is your mission. This is what you do. This is how you're positioned. And you're a 64-year-old dude. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. It's not for you. I never had to do that, but I was prepared. But there was so much benefit for the client because I was able to extract from their heads the stuff that everybody needed to know in a clear, concise, and actionable way. So everybody was on that same team. Everybody knew how they're contributing to the success of what we were trying to accomplish together. And I forced clients through it. And when I left there, that shit came with me. And I forced clients through it the first couple of years of starting Propr. But then something great happened. They just wanted that. Mm. And they wanted that because they lacked the ability to create a clear growth strategy that would inform what's appropriate for brand, what's appropriate for marketing, what's appropriate for business dev and sales, what's appropriate for hiring, what's appropriate for investing in an office or not, the technology in the office, the stuff, the culture of the company, right? Who we recruit, who we work with. All that stuff becomes easy decisions to make. The hardest, scariest question for a business owner and its leadership team to ask is this what's right for the brand and our future customer? Is this hurting or helping us? They can't ask that because they usually can't answer it. But if they have the guts to ask it and the commitment to find the answer, then they can make good decisions that are helping the company quickly. And even when there's no bosses in the office, just workers doing their work, and something happens or someone has a need. You don't got to worry about it because they know what Alexander would do. Because there's no leadership void anymore because everybody knows how we do it around here. And how does that impact an e-commerce website or a SaaS brand or what? In every way possible. Because you think about that job I had where they hired me and it was miserable for me. Do you think I produced? Nope. I did as little as possible. I hated it. I mean, I did my work, but like I did as little as possible. I contributed. Of all the stuff I could have contributed, I contributed a small portion of it. Because I just went in there and did what I had to do at a baseline, got my pay, and left. But if you have everybody engaged and there's the right people in the right seat and you're working on that common goal, man, that is how you really build something that's going to really do amazing stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the phrases that the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks, uses. They say to leave the shirt better. So you want to leave the team better than when you found it.
That's so funny, man. That's what I say too. I was like, anybody who touches our brand, anybody who listens to this, you know, people on the street, an intern, someone's portfolio review, someone who's read my book. Like, I want them to be better than they were before. And it could be something small. So the New Zealand rugby team, I mean, cool. We're kindred spirits.
Leave the shirt in a better place. So
I love it.
They have another one, and this comes from the book Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. Great book. If anybody has like a large group or even a small group, 5, 7, 8, 10.
I have one of his books.
Probably the Talent Code. That's, I think, the other one. That's really
I think the Talent Code I have. Yeah.
That one I haven't read, but I read the Culture Code, and it was fantastic. But the other one is Sweep the Sheds, is what the All Blacks say. So every player, including the best players, the most senior players, they go in and they have all the equipment stored in the shed, and don't miss the details. Essentially, you know, even the best, longest term player has to go in and sweep the shed every once in a while.
Yeah.
And they intentionally do that to show sort of like, I'm leading by example. I'm one of the best players. I've won World Cups. I've won Player of the Year, but I do the job. I go in and I sweep the shed. I'm not essentially above that. And I love that. And I think that's a little bit what you're kind of pointing to, is that if everybody buys into the thing, there's no star player who, well, and this is one of the things that I harp on a lot, is the two things I find that frustrate people very quickly about leadership is lack of consistency. So if there's rules for Bobby, but rules that don't fit into me, like he can come in at 10. I have to come in at 8:30, but no, he's the owner, so he can come in at 10. I'm like, forget that. Like, if you have to start at 8:30, I have to start at 8:30. If you're allowed to come in at 10, I'm going to also play by that rule. But let's not create these unique rules that people fit into certain, buckets, and they get them because of
hierarchy,
some made up thing. Like, well, no, that's the best player on the team. He doesn't have to sweep the sheds. It's like, no, forget that.
That's a caste system, man. And that just creates animosity and contempt.
The second thing that I see people get really frustrated about is just lack of transparency, where it's like, I don't even know what the rules are. They won't tell me. And it's like this random punishment sometimes. Again, Bobby comes in late, but I come in late, and it's like, I'm in trouble now. It's like, it's not transparent. There's a rule in place that someone needs to follow, or not transparent what the expectations are. Kind of like you hit on with the job that you hated so much. There was not a clear expectation of what success looks like, or a clear expectation of how do I get to a higher paying level. If they told you right up front, we're going to be honest with you, there's nothing you can do to get paid more, you would have been probably a lot happier, because you'd just been like, cool, I at least know now. Then I get to make a decision of whether or not I should stay or go. But when they're not clear and transparent with you about what the expectations or the path to success looks like, people get really frustrated with those two things. And
big time.
I've seen that over and over.
Yeah, and you know what happens about that too? Like, I like to define brand as your reputation, because it's everything. And it just really makes it approachable and ownable. But like, if the owner of the company's parking in the handicap spot because it's closer to the door, well, what a colossal asshole that is. But it's also like, the people that are frustrated that are working for you, what happens when they're in front of a customer? What happens when they're on the street? They're talking shit, right? And you're earning that reputation by the decisions you're making. So it's like you're going to get the reputation you deserve, right? Make it the one you want.
Yeah, and I want to talk about some bad marketing stories, but here's one for you. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but we went and visited a really large manufacturer. They were, probably $100 million a year business, big business.
Yeah.
And we had a meeting with the CEO at 10 a.m. And we get there at, 9:30. We're there precipitously early. Oh, mind you, it's in Pittsburgh, so it's like a long drive for us, 3.5 hours. So we leave at 6 a.m. We get there at 9:30. We're kind of hanging out, waiting for the CEO. We meet one of his associates, and they kind of show us around. And we're in the conference room. It's 10. It's 10:15. It's like 10:30. Still not there. And they're like, oh, well, he usually gets in like at 11 or something like that. We're like, okay, well, we had a meeting at 10, so already like whatever. He's 45 minutes late to our meeting. Pulls up, and he has a parking spot that says reserved for the CEO, and it's like an arm's reach away from the door. So it's like, okay, that's also a little bit of a weird red flag, but I'm still not losing anything yet, but he was driving, I think he was driving a Ferrari. I'm almost sure, which it's cool. I'd love to have a Ferrari, but you also got to be thoughtful enough to be like, I have people in the back making minimum wage, and we walk through the facility. They had people like, literally, you take this cardboard box, you pull it off the line, you shove it into a pallet, and then you're doing that for like 5 hours at a time. And I know these people are making like $10.75 an hour, and then they're seeing this guy pull up at 10:30, 10:45 in a Ferrari, and then to just really put like the cherry on top. This is really hilarious. But we met for like 45 minutes, like 11 to 11:45, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going to the gym," and he's like, "I'm leaving. I'm literally like leaving the facility, gonna go work out, and then come back." And it was like, whoa, this is everything like not to do as a leader. It was kind of encapsulated in one story. And look, if he built a successful business, so clearly there's something that he did right. But I personally know how much stress and strain that would cause underneath all of the foundation of the business. I don't want to be involved in that business where people are going to be talking shit about me behind my back and tearing me down and complaining and probably crazy high turnover. It's just like you're not making life easier on yourself. Like you didn't have to do that many things different to make life a little bit easier on yourself. So hey, I don't know.
Yeah, have a Ferrari. Don't drive it to work. Drive a Range Rover. Whatever.
That'd be nice too. But yeah, tell me about some of your bad, marketing stories, because I know that's a topic that's near and dear to your heart. I heard you tease that there's a book coming.
So my first book is called Build Your Brand Like You Give a Shit. My second book, which is in pre-production, is a workbook on it's basically my entire consulting curriculum for growth strategy. My third book started out as a blog post, then it became a 4-part series blog post, and now it's a book. It's about best practices and processes and procedures on SaaS web design. Thrilling, boring as shit. But like SaaS is a thing that we've been working with for a long time. And I wanted to write about it. And each part somehow became 4,000 words. So it's tracking around 16, 17,000 words, which is about a 100-page book. And, but my next book is the passion project. It's called Shitty Marketing. And what I'm doing is really focusing on one of the big catalysts for me starting my own business was the way marketing is designed to work sucks. And if I can help people avoid the problems and pitfalls of the way it just works, while giving, other business owners the opportunity to share their story and laugh about it and maybe vent and feel some closure on, and let me say this, it's not that these marketing people and companies are always deliberately trying to exploit their customers. I think a lot of them are trying to do their best, but what they lack is the ability to create a strategy and a point of view that matters, that's going to get results. It's all tactics, right? So, which one should I tell? How about a story of pre-shitty marketing that translates to insane results?
Okay.
All right. So a guy that used to work with us was a marketer. He used to work at that agency with me. He was the director of marketing, and they let him go. And when I started my company, we were buddies. Like, he's a good guy to hang out at the bar. I said, yeah, come hang out. Like, I'm solo right now. Like, I could definitely have somebody around to help. And he got a client that did like big data stuff, like data lakes and Python coding and dashboards and all that stuff. And they work for Fortune 2000 companies. So they're helping them tap into all this data and make it usable to make decisions, and creating dashboards and help accelerate decision making, and really building out sort of that CTO, CIO role in these companies and supporting those people. So this guy was hired to be like their outsourced marketing director, and he was using Propr to just do like some project work every month. Like, we had a small retainer and like a couple, $5,000, $6,000, and we were doing like different stuff based on what this guy and the one of the owners of the company decided were their priorities. And they started to like organize events, and because they're working with Fortune 2000 companies, you could really find your customers, and it's just relationship type marketing. They would, mine LinkedIn, create a list, send stuff to them to invite them to these events. They had them at like breweries and distilleries and stuff, and they would get a speaker. It's great sort of tactic for B2B, especially in tech, but just one piece of that equation. Mm-hmm. And the marketing guy who was working with me kind of thought that they loved him and that they wanted to offer him a job. So he went to this event. Meanwhile, leading up to the event, he did nothing. Mm. They had an internal person that ended up having to do all the heavy lifting. And they focused so hard on various tactics that there was no clear process to, like, once the people got there, how to engage with them, what to say to them, how, it was just a chill kind of happy hour vibe, yeah, but like,
drink and see what happens kind of
thing. And talk, right? And like, that was kind of it. So this guy goes, and all he does is talk to the guests. And I go too, free whiskey. And I go too, and they, this guy is just talking to the guests. I remember hearing him. I was just mingling too, about how he's their marketing director, and he is waiting for them to offer them a job. So like, all these guests are like, what the hell is this dude talking about? And creating all this weird vibe. So, the night's fine. It goes well enough. Like, I talk with the client who I wasn't too tightly connected with through the engagement, and I left. And the next day I get up, and the client like the client got home and removed the dude from access to everything. Like, didn't even wait till the next day and fired him. And the guy, I don't know if he called me or texted me, and he's like, basically, F them. And I'm like, well, what happened? Well, it turns out that he wasn't like hold on, there's a fire engine.
I hear, man. You must live in a tough neighborhood there in Baltimore. Really fitting into the Baltimore stereotype,
right?
Isn't it?
The firehouse is like a block down, so it goes by the main street all the time, and they love blowing the horns. Where was I? So it turns out he was hired as a marketing director, right? Not a CMO. And a CMO and a marketing director are different. And CMO is kind of like organizing and managing people and vendors and stuff. And he was marketing director, supposed to do the marketing too. So he didn't actually do anything. So they're paying him like whatever the retainer was, $5,000 a month to be their marketing director, paying us $5,000 a month to do design and writing and stuff. And he was just kind of like naive or oblivious to it. So they fired him, and he made it their fault. It was their fault, right? So I messaged the client and was like, yo, no big deal. Like, I'll still work with you. Like, you don't have to work with him. Like, I like you guys. I'm fine with your relationship. So the guy's like, okay, let's grab beers. It's a deal. So we grabbed beers and we sat down, and I said, you know, what's up? What are you guys up to? And he said, I have big plans. I said, well, let's talk about your goals then. And what he informed me was, he's like, we worked with this guy for, 6 months, 8 months. He never asked that question. He just pushed them into like installing HubSpot on their website, doing all this HubSpot automation, doing all these ad campaigns, basically just spending a bunch of money doing all these activities. And then leading up to the event, the guy didn't help support the event. He didn't act as a leader at the event. And the guy's just like, the hell with this. So that's why he fired him. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So I said, well, what are your goals? And he said, number one goal is we want to be acquired in 3 years.
It's good.
Number two goal, that's specific, right? Number two goal is we want to grow revenue, obviously, right? So you want to grow revenue so the company's worth more money, so the acquisition is better. And the third one is we suck at employee engagement and recruiting. So they're doing, it's big data. Those guys that aren't being pumped out of community college. Like, you need to find these people. You need to track them. You need to keep them engaged and get them in the right seat. So I said, great, right? Let's do that. Let's get another round and let's do that. Let's keep doing whatever it is you're doing. Don't stop, because I don't know if it's working or not. And I'd rather you just keep going as long as you can afford to keep doing the marketing you're doing now. Never stop unless you know there's no ROI. And but have a plan. What are you going to do next? So we talked about, I said the first thing we want to do is build out your complete growth strategy. So I have a workshop that's now sort of my curriculum for consulting. And the workshop is, we sit down, we go through like from the bottom up, like your values. And it's not like all like superficial BS. It's like, these are our values. This is how we live them. This is how it's actionable for us. So like, your value can't be integrity. It's got to be like, we do the right thing. We fight for what's right, and we don't stand for like, we treat each other with respect, like whatever it may be, right? So we went and he's like, we've done this before. I said, just humor me, man. So we go through, the first phase is about the values and the mission and the vision. The next phase, we get into like the messaging. the positioning, the category. Then it's personality and aesthetic and tone of voice. And then we put together the growth plan. So doing this, right, these guys are super smart. Princeton grad, no joke, like super like smart people, like love hanging out with those guys. And what happened, because we ditched the tactics, they got rid of HubSpot. I was like, get rid of HubSpot. Like you have a list of 2,000 potential customers, and we narrowed it down to 20. And then we got the CIO or CTO's information. So we had a list of 50 people, and all we needed was 2 clients, and we would like almost 100x their spend. And it was like, okay, well, let's start with that. The strategy is to do all those things, get rid of this extra spend that's worthless, and start doing more events and attracting the right people. Also, stop saying what you're saying to them, because it doesn't make any sense. So we reframed how they talk to their client, their prospects. So, all right, this is September. We had those beers probably beginning of September 2019. Before the end of the year, they went from 1.4 million to just over 3 million. Doubled revenue. The reason they doubled revenue was because they reduced their sales cycle from 12 months to 8 weeks. Because they said the right thing to their prospects. They were clear on their value. They were clear on what they could do for them and the problems that they would solve. All right. So then they also turned their marketing admin into the head of personnel or recruiting, something like that. And she knew the right people to hire, not based on their resume, but based on the culture lists that we provided, because they were inserting their customers into these, inserting their team inside like Care First or Avis or Hertz, right, to do what they do, because it was basically a outsourced in-house data team. So like, we were in Baltimore. The dude, one of the dudes, it was a husband and wife that owned it. The husband's from Pittsburgh. The wife's from Baltimore. We're East Coast, Rust Belt, tough people. And like, the culture had to fit into like Alabama and South Carolina, as well as Pittsburgh, right? So like, the culture is not like how we talk to each other and if we were irreverent and how we dress. No, the culture is like, what the hell do we care about? How do we communicate with people? What's important to us, and how does that align with what's important to them? Because like, going into Alabama is probably quite different than going into Pittsburgh, right? Like, it's just different culturally. And so like, you're embedded in these companies. So we had to like distill that down to like, this is what's important to us. Like, be yourself, but own these things so that we're getting the right reputation as a strategic partner to these companies. So she was able to identify the right people to bring in. She was also able to reassess who was on squad, because they knew what was best for the company and best for the future customer. So they can evaluate now. Before it was like, I'm not sure. I got a sense that they're not right, or I got a sense that they, so we're not looking at resumes, assessing whether they're the right fit. It's like, here's what we care about. Here's what we'll give you. Here's what your role means. And then people self-selected if they wanted to work there or not. And like, that makes all the difference in the world. Like, I want to be a part of this. It's different than like, yes, I'll take your job offer. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So starting September, before the end of the year, we doubled revenue, right? Not going from 100K to 200K. Went from basically 1.5 to 3. they were able to create a recruited and employee engagement system to bring in the right people and keep the right people, high performers, everything in between, leaders. So back to the acquisition. During all this, one of their prospects became a customer. And that customer is a global fintech data company. Huge company, like billions. During the negotiations to hire them, it came up about an potential acquisition. So, long story short, March 1st of 2020, September to March 1st, doubled revenue, created a recruiting, employee engagement machine, acquired.
It's a fast turnaround.
You know what we spent on marketing, like tools and campaigns? Nothing. So we went into the end of the year. I think they were paying us like $6-7K a month. They doubled it. They doubled our retainer. The owner's like, what do we need to spend with you this year? I said $15,000 a month. He said, all right. And we created all these systems to like punch list for them to be able to do the events without me, right? Procedures and processes and assets that they could do on their own to a point. So I was just guiding the strategy and helping with the implementation and optimizing everything, right? It's what I do now. But I started to do it heavily then. And the worst part about it is that I lost that client because we were freaking good at strategy, not at task. So like I'm sitting there, I remember, I knew it was coming. Like I worked with the owners.
Yeah. I
knew it was coming. And dude, something weird happened like around the holidays. The CEO of the corporation, I don't want to name drop, the CEO of the corporation was killed by a drunk driver in December. And then mid-March, COVID hit hard. So there was this window between like the holidays and March 1st where it should have fallen apart. But they saw this small data analytics team, this small company, as something they really wanted, even with the CEO dying. They pushed it through. They kept it going. So I'm sitting there, March 1st comes, I'm here, I'm still at this office. He's like, yeah, dude, it's official. And I'm like, F. And I'm like, what the hell? And I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday. And I went to the bar. Oh, shit. I went to the bar and I sat there and I was like, this doesn't happen. That you lose your best client because you did what they needed you to do. And I'm like, I got a beer and a Jameson. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like telling the bartender, she has no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to the internet and see if there's any tales of this. And like all the tales of like losing clients because you screwed up, or they got fed up, or it just was the wrong fit from the get. And I'm like, ah. So I'm like, I went to like the Addy Awards or something like that next weekend, and I'm talking to like all my peers. I think we won a gold Addy that year too. We never submit anything. Yeah, we did. That was the year we won the gold, and then we went and won. Oh no, that was that was that year. We won the gold, and then we won a gold in regionals. Oh, anyway, awards are meaningless. I was telling people, I'm like, you ever hear of a story like this? And they're like, no. So I'm like, all right, well, at least I got the story, and I tell it again. But then COVID hit, and we lost all of our clients, which was fine because I was pivoting the company anyway, and I got rid of a lot of bad fits. So I guess there is a bit of a happy ending, right? We got paid for 2 months of work at $15K. Nice. It was a 2-people company, so it was good. It got us through like a lot of months of payroll. And with this guy in his new role at this giant corporation, they came back and hired us again to help position, message, and train their biz dev team on how to sell this new service within this big ass entity. So we worked with them for 3-4 months over the summer, doing killer work so that this $1 billion company could sell this cloud services stuff. And that's a great story because none of that success had to do with the latest tools and software, social media channels, or various tactics or activities. It was just, this is who we are. This is the problems we solve. This is who we do it for. Let's talk to those people.
Yeah. I think we are brothers from the same kin in the way that we think about marketing, because I see so much, I mean, I don't want to say bullshit on LinkedIn, but optimize your click-through rate.
It's all bullshit.
This
tool will grow this tool to grow your company. It will not grow your company.
There's a new ad platform within Amazon that you can do this and this. And really, for me, I take it back to what you're saying. Do you actually have a product that people want? Are you in the right category? Is it a growing category? You know, what is your value proposition? What's your pricing strategy like? There's so many 20 things that are way more important than like how optimized your ads are. And I straight up tell people who talk to us, I'm like, ads are pretty simple in Amazon, honestly. Like, they're not complicated. Like, they're working or they're not working. There's no magic bullets. There's no secret keyword that you're going to get that it's like, that transformed my company. Now I have the secret keyword because those
Could
keywords
you imagine?
They're going to get
no
found.
one's ever said that.
No. I mean, well, some people probably do. They probably sell. No, we're really good.
People are selling it.
We'll find the secret keywords. I had one person who was like, the guy I have as my agency says he's using AI. I don't really know what he's doing. You know, it's just like throw that. Yeah, so we do a little bit of AI. We do a little bit of AI optimization with your listing. I'm like, come off of it. But yeah, man, got to have a good product. Got to have a product that's in the right category. Gotta have good branding.
Solving a problem that people are willing to spend a reasonable amount to solve or eliminate.
And I think one of the things you said early on, I'll come back to finish this thing out. Nothing is a rush when it comes to marketing. If you're going to launch a product, launch a brand, launch a company, don't rush it. Think about, is this a good product? Let me test. Is this the right product at the right time? Is this the right industry that I even want to be in? You know, how do I price this thing? Is it better than the other products in the market? Don't lie to yourself either and be like,
different.
It's the best product in the category. No, it's not. No, it's probably honestly not. And if it is, it's 2 times the price of the next closest one. That's my favorite when we do a lot of sports nutrition. So I do a lot of things for that. It's the best pre-workout in the industry. And I'm like, is it $100? Because if it's not, then it probably isn't. No. It's just like, no, it's affordable. I'm like, well, then which one do you want?
Price perception.
Do you want to be the best product in the category because you got to pay for all these really expensive ingredients and it is going to be super expensive? Or do you just want to be like good and reasonably priced? That's also okay if you're that.
Yeah.
But again, it's just funny. You know, don't lie to yourself. The first principle is not to fool yourself, and you're the easiest person to fool. So create something.
Yeah, because we use our brain to think instead of our gut. You got to use your gut. Your gut's not going to lie to you. Your brain's going to tell you all kinds of crazy shit.
Well, Bobby, let's finish with this. What's your one best piece of marketing advice that you can give somebody out there?
My one best piece of marketing advice. uh, it's find somebody that can help you with a strategy first that unifies all facets of growth. So, like, they're talking about brand. They're talking about marketing. They're talking about business dev. They're talking about sales and conversions. They're talking about they care about all those things. And you're going to find somebody who's going to help you. Don't just find somebody who's cheap. Like, don't find somebody who's inexperienced. Don't find somebody who claims to be an expert at marketing or expert at digital marketing. Like this, that's the like speaking of LinkedIn, that's the most hilarious thing I see. But also drives me nuts is that digital marketing expert. That's like saying you're an expert at sports.
Yeah, right.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So like really, LinkedIn's hilarious. Like it's definitely the B2B channel for me. But there's no other. But like, fractional CMO is the hottest title out there and nobody earned it. Plus you probably don't need a fractional CMO if you're a small business and your owner operate it. Like you need somebody to help you with growth. And that's a more holistic, intentional, quality oriented approach. And I'm that guy and there's others out there. So like skip the tactics, the tools, this latest gimmick or thing is not going to get you the growth. Mm-hmm. It's not going to accelerate anything. You got to do it the right way. And you got to find folks that really care about the impact on your business, the results they're going to drive for your business, and make their pay structure contingent upon, have them throw skin in the game. Like I have my advisor clients pay me a monthly fee, but depending on how our engagement is, like if they make $200K, they give me a percentage. If they make $500K, my rate goes up. That's because I care about their impact, not about doing stuff.
Yeah. My piece of marketing advice I was thinking about while you were saying that would be just create a product that people are actually going to want. Like don't force a product on people that they don't want or need. Doesn't matter how good you are at marketing. You could be the best marketer in the world, but if you have like another bullshit Me Too product, it's like you're honestly just kind of like lying and fibbing to people then at that point and trying to like hype up how good it is when it's really right in the middle or like a 4 out of 10. And
the best in class fallacy is real.
That feels slimy. That feels slimy to me to be great at marketing with an average product.
Yeah, what a waste. What a waste.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, trust me, I know someone.
Like what a waste. Like so like when they're thinking about their product and what their service and what they're developing, don't think about competing with who already is dominating that category and claim that you're better because no one will care.
Yeah.
Right? Be different.
Oh yeah.
That's going to get you there and be able to talk about the problem you're solving for your most special customers. And that's how you're going to make some money.
I love it. Bobby, where can people find you, find your agency, find the books that you've written?
Go to our website, propragency.com. Propr is spelled specially. It's PROPR.
We'll tag it.
Agency.com. I'm on LinkedIn doing a lot of shit. Check me out. That Bobby G, THAT Bobby G. And you can go, if you go to our website, you'll find my book. The other books aren't out yet, but you really want to rebuild your brand. Like give a shit. It's a branding book that has nothing to do with design. And it's all about mindset and a manifesto to do shit the right way. And that's on Amazon.
I love it. Thank you, Bobby. It was great to chat with you tonight, man. I appreciate it.
This is wonderful.
Hell yeah, man. We'll get a beer soon next time we're together.
Yeah, word.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks.